Yo, what's up? In this video I'm going to show you how you can use the Neo Anim from the Motion Essentials pack. So you get the Neo Anim as a effects, and you'll also get it as a Fusion .setting file. So you can find it in here if you want to. Firstly, I'll show you how you can do some pretty basic stuff with the Neo Anim in the edit page, and then I'll show you how you can do some basic stuff and some pretty advanced stuff with the Neo Anim inside of the Fusion page afterwards. I'll leave timestamps down below, so if you just want to skip to the Fusion page directly, you can do that. So let's say we want to animate this DaVinci Resolve logo. What we can do is we can of course use keyframes, spend way too much time on it, or we can use the Neo Anim, which is really quick to animate anything. So I'll just go ahead and grab the Neo Anim like this and add it to the DaVinci Resolve logo. Then the first settings we can see is we can choose the center of the animation pivot point. So if we zoom it down, get it up from over here. And what we also can do is change the angle of it and the size, of course. So I'll just size it down a little bit like this. And the next thing we see is the animation engine. So I'll just enable a size animation so you can see what it does. So for now we can see we have enabled the in animation and the out animation. So this is just how we get an in animation, so you can see it pops up, and then afterwards we get the out. This we can disable or enable as we want. So if we don't want the in animation, just disable it, and if we don't want the out animation, we can also disable that. For now I'll just do both like this. Then we can change the length of the animation, and this is at second. So if we want to make it 1 second as is at default, we can do that. We can also do 1.5, so the animation is really slow like this, and the offset is basically to add any delay of some sort. So if we want to add a little bit of delay, we can do half a second of the delay. So after half a second it'll animate on. The out length is the same just for the out. So if we want the animation to be a little longer, we can make it bigger. And if we want the subject to be animated out a little bit earlier, we can do 0.5, and then the subject will be animated out 0.5 seconds before this clip ends. For now I'll just leave everything at default. The curve, you can change the animation curve if you want to. What I like to use is Expo, but you can do whatever you want. One thing that's also really cool is this elastic one, where you can see it gets this really nice and clean elastic pop-up. For now I'll just be using Expo, and if you want to as well, you can custom, so you can make your own custom curve. If you want to make it really fast in the beginning and slow over time, you can do that this here, which is also pretty cool. For now I'll use Expo, and then you can enable all of these different kinds of animation and mix and match them as you want. So for example, you can do a size and angle animation, and you get this really nice spin up. And what I like to do with this is do elastic curve, so this looks really clean, I think. And I'll just make the animation maybe 1.2 instead, so it goes a little bit slower, but that's really clean. You can of course also do some other stuff, so just Expo again. I'll just disable the size and the angle. Then we can do this really clean slide up. So the offset in here, we can change basically how far does the animation go from the start to the end. So I'll just do 0.05, and then origin is just the target position, you can say, so what position it ends at. The angle is where it slides from, so -90 is from the bottom, 0 is from the right side, and 180 is from the left side, like that. And you probably guessed it, 90 is from the top and then down. I'll just be using -90, so we get a nice slide up instead. And yeah, the angle, as I said before, and yeah, the angle, so where it starts and where it ends, the target angle. And then we can enable some blend, so we get this slide up and faded. So here we can also choose want it to be already a little bit blended in before we start, or fully blended out. We can also enable blur, so we get this really nice blur in the beginning. But for now I'll just disable that, and we can remove the slide up and fade, because now I just want to show you the motion blur. I'll just pop up with the elastic spin up zoom in, this one here, and then we can enable some motion blur if we want to. So as you can see, the motion blur plays really fast when the animation is not happening, and this is basically because we use smart motion blur, which in theory means it isn't rendering while the animation is not playing. And usually most plugins don't use this, so it will render the motion blur even though the subject isn't even moving. So this just makes it render a lot faster, because it isn't rendering any motion blur when we aren't having any animation. But as you can see, when we have animation, we have a really, we go here, we can see we have a really high quality motion blur. So let's say we get this really nice spin up and the animation in, but we want a different out animation. What we could do, just enable out here, and then we can add another Neo Anim to stack them, you can say. Then we can go into the new one, and then we can just remove in animation and go down here, enable blur, blend. So then it spins up and then it fades out and blurs like that. So this was pretty much how you can use the Neo Anim on the edit page of DaVinci Resolve using the effects version. Now let's just jump inside of Fusion, and I'll show you how you can use the Neo Anim in there because it's a little bit different than the one on the edit page because it's customized for the Fusion page. So now we are in the Fusion page of DaVinci Resolve because we are going to be doing the Neo Anim in here. And it's important you use the .setting file, this version of the Neo Anim, when you're using the Neo Anim inside of the Fusion page, because if you use the regular one you can find over here, you can't copy and paste it multiple times. And this is also using seconds instead of frames, because what is really cool when we use frames in here is we can easily see how many frames different things are. So if we want to delay it to frame 40, for example, we can just do in offset 40, then the animation will start here, which makes it a lot faster to animate it. So if we take a look at all the different controls, up here we can change center of it, we can change pivot point. So if I zoom it down, it will pop up from over here and it will spin from this pivot point as well. And as you saw, we can also change size and the angle, basically whatever we can change in the normal transform. Now I'll just enable a size up animation so you can see it animates in, but if you want to make it animate out as well, we can just enable this checkbox. The in length is just how long the animation lasts on the in animation. So right now you can see it lasts onto, but if you want to make it last to frame 100, for example, with that, so the animation will play all the way to frame 100. Can't probably see that well right now because we use an expo curve, but if you use none, it scales up all the way to frame 100 and then stop. So this is the benefit of using frames instead of seconds. So let's say we want to delay the animation by 50 frames, so it size up after 50 frames, we can do that. So if we do 50, you can see there's no size here, but then when we hit frame 50, it will start animating up until frame 100, because if we plus these two together, we get to frame 100. The same you can do for the out. So if we want out animation to be done at, let's say, frame 250, we can just take this number here and minus 250. We can of course also do this, so then you can see it's already out at frame 250, which is really good. Now I'll just take 0 and I'll remove the out animation because we won't be using that, and I'll make the in offset 0 as well. For now we will change the in curve to in out expo, so it'll be, we'll do elastic and out, so we get this really nice pop-up. And then the target size, just make it a little bit smaller like this here, so it pops up to 0.03 like that. And if you want to do a custom curve, doing custom curve and then changing this curve as you like, I'll just the elastic one. Then you can do position animation, so it slides up like this, and because we use elastic it'll look pretty crazy. I'll just do expo for now. Then it slides up like this, where you can change the angle, which is basically where it slides from. So if we want it to slide from the right, we can do 0, we can do 180 from, so it slides from the left, and 90 for slide down. And the offset is basically just how far out it starts. So if we want to start really close to that, I'll just make it default everything and then just remove it. And the angle is just a nice angle animation where you can choose start angle and the target angle, which is the end angle. The blend just fade in, fade out, depending if you use it on the in or out. And I'll also de-enable that for now. And then if you want to, we can also do blur. So get a blur beginning, we remove the blur. And then in the bottom here, we can of course enable motion blur if we want to. And if you watch the part on the edit page, as I explained, we use smart motion blur, which basically means it will turn off the motion blur once the animation is done. And when it's animating, it'll still be using motion blur. For now, I'll just disable it, because now we're gonna do some animation stacking, which basically means that we can make it pop up over here, then mid animation slide over there, then slide to another position if you want to, and then animate out as well. So the first animation we want, expo, is a elastic out animation. So it pops up like that, and we'll make it pop up over here, and then just make the animation 70 frames. So the pop up is a little bit slower and more clean. And then we copy this Neo Anim, and then just make this say in, this will say mid and 1, and then just move center animation and remove the size animation, and just add this 4 here to make sure the pivot point correct. And we'll need to remove the angle animation as well, so this is really good. Now we can go to the mid and 1, and then we'll slide over to this position at frame 7. So then we can just add some offset to in offset here, so then the ace will start at this animation at frame 70, and I want this to 50 frames. And we will do a position animation so it slides, so we'll make it slide over to this position around here, so we can just drag up the offset to when it is the position we want. I'll probably make this 0 because it will gliding right, and then we'll just do, we can do 1, we can do 1.2, and then as you can see it starts animating up here. But what we can do now is we can just do invert, then it will start the animation from this position and animate over. Then for the curve we will expo, and then we will do quad. So this, now you can see we get this really clean slide over like that. And you can do this as many times as you like. So want to add one more, we can add one more here. I'll just call this mid anim 2. And as you can see now, it will probably slide out, but we can delay this to whatever 50 plus 70 is 120, and then just drag the offset down a whole lot and then make it minus 90. Oh yeah, minus 90, then it'll slide down. And then you can see it slides down this. It's pretty cool. So now let's just say we want out animation. So we just copy this one more time and then just rename it to out. Then we'll click on out animation, and then we'll probably make this, it will last 50 frames, but we'll need to see what it will need out at frame 107. So then we can just go to frame 290 to minus 107. So then it knows it will need to delay it by 120 frames. So I'll just remove the position out control, and then I want it to be a fade out blur. So if we take a look at it, as you can see, okay, so I can see it is a bit too early. We started the animation, so I probably did something wrong in my math, but we wanted to be starting to animate out of this frame here. So what we can do is we can just drag down the out offset until we can see clearly. So yeah, now it should be good. Yes, that's good. And then we can just drag up the start blur a whole lot to get this really big blur. Yeah, this is good. So this is pretty much how you can be stacking these animations with the Neo Anim. And if you got any questions regarding it, because it can be a little bit advanced to do, you can just leave them down below, then I'll try to get back to you. And of course, also, if you want to, you can also enable motion blur on all of these. It's just best to wait until the end once you have made all the animation, so it won't affect the playback. But yeah, this was pretty much the video about the Neo Anim. And if you haven't already got the Motion Essentials pack, you can also find that in the description down below. Have a great day out there, and I'll see you in the next video.